Yo, what's up guys, it's Whac-A-Mole back with another Genshin Impact video. As you might have already seen over on Twitter, people are once again molding because the Spiral Abyss is back with another reset. A new one to be precise. And this time around we once again have to deal with not only the Ruin Serpent but also the Wenut and the Aeonblight Drake. And let me tell you a little secret here, unlike 99% of the Genshin community, I actually like those enemies. As such, let us take a closer look at everything you need to know when it comes to this version of the Abyss. Alright, before we get into the actual one here, let us quickly talk about team composition as well as enemy lineup. When it comes to your opponents, the first half of each chamber is not really that difficult. For the first half, in chamber 1, we have a large Primus, which if you are using Penuma and Lucia characters is easier to deal with, but you can also burn it down. One thing to keep in mind here is that that enemy has a Dendro shield, so if you're using Pyro characters in order to take care of that shield, you need to be aware that if you infuse yourself with Pyro, and if you take damage from them, which will be Dendro damage, you will be inflicted with burning, which will basically shred your HP, so be careful when it comes to that. Chamber 2 has Eremite enemies in there. You all know them, they hit hard, but if you take down their ads, they get stunned and they are easier to deal with. And Chamber 3, not a whole lot to talk about here. When it comes to the second half, this time around, that one is a whole lot more annoying to deal with. Because we have an Aeonblight Drake in Chamber 3, we have a Wenut in Chamber 2, and we have a Serpent in Chamber 1. Those guys, for those that are entirely new to the game, tend to hide a lot. In Chamber 3, the Aeonblight Drake, it doesn't really hide, but it's flying around a lot, so you need to stun it in order to bring it back down to the ground. The easiest way to deal with those characters is to use characters on your own to deal with those characters. I mean, the easiest way to deal with those enemies is to use characters that do a lot of damage with a single attack. Characters that come to mind here are Ganyu, for example, Linne, or any of the other characters that kinda, do a lot of damage with a single attack. Bow characters, though, are the best when it comes to that. One composition that I don't see a whole lot when it comes to those enemies is this one. I know you're thinking, okay, the fuck, right? But this one works really well because Yaemiko's turrets are going to attack your opponents as soon as they reappear. And due to the Dendro element on them, because we're using Nahida, we are constantly proccing Aggravate on them, and that basically shreds their HP. Now you might be thinking, okay, that works for the first and the second chamber, but not really for the third one, because in that one we have an Aeonblight Drake. And you are absolutely correct when it comes to that. In that case, we need to adjust our composition here, and the best way to do so is to put in Yelan, for example. You can also put in Fischl, because in that case we have 4 turrets, right? One from Fischl and 3 from Yaemiko, but Yelan is the best character when it comes to that, in my opinion, and at least I used her in one of the runs earlier. Another composition, and the one that we are going to use for the run here, is a Linne composition. And in that case we use Linne, Kazuha, Jungling, and Bennett. You can also run with the Ganyu composition, right? But in our case we are going to use Linne. For the first half, you can kinda use whatever. You can go with a Navia composition, you can go with a Zhanyun composition, right? In that case, pair her with any of the characters I mentioned in the guide for her, which by the way, I uploaded today, so if you want to see a guide for Zhanyun, then go ahead and check it out. But we are going to use a Neuvillette composition. And in that case, we are using Neuvillette, Furina, a Shielder, which in my case is Lila. Usually you would see Zhongli here, but I don't have him, and Lila is a really good shielder. And another character that we are going to use at least, which you also don't see a whole lot being paired with Neuvillette, is Yaemiko. So it would look like this, our composition for the run later on. Why are we using Yaemiko? Basically, the only reason here is that we need another element in our party in order to effectively activate Neuvillette's passive, which will increase his damage, and my Yaemiko is broken. She has a signature weapon, really good artifacts, like her turrets hit a lot, so that's why I'm using her, right? But like I said, you can also, instead of Miku, you can use Fischl or any of the other characters. It kind of depends on you. You also don't have to run with a Novelette composition. Like I said, you can go for Navia, you can go for Janyung, you can go for, I mean, you could even use Raiden Shogun for this one, right? All those enemies are easily attackable with Raiden Shogun. It entirely depends on what characters you have. So yeah, let us now get into the run, and I will show you or tell you a few things that you need to be aware of when dealing with the enemies, so that you don't have to spend like an hour or so in the abyss this time around. So yeah, let's get started. Alright, for this I will simply just talk over my run, explain a few things here and there, a few mistakes that I did, a few tips and tricks when it comes to the enemies, and you know, when it comes to those enemies that we have right now, there's not a whole lot when it comes to them. You can stun them, like I said earlier, with the Penuma and Usia mechanic of your characters, but besides that, they are fairly easy to deal with. Sometimes it happens that one of them just wanders off. I don't know, he just wanders off to the edge of the arena, and if that happens, then just restart the run. I don't know why it happens, but, you know, it happens. When it comes to the Breachers, like I said, they have a Dendo shield, so if you take care of that Dendo shield by using Pyro, then be aware that you could get inflicted with burning, so that is fairly dangerous. But besides that, as you can see, they go down fairly quickly. Like I said earlier, this abyss is all about winning time in the first half of each chamber so that you have more time in the second half. Which brings us to the second half. In here we have a Ruin Serpent, and the Ruin Serpent has a bunch of different mechanics. The one I had here was more or less perfect when it comes to the mechanics. One thing to keep in mind here is that right away in the beginning of the fight, it will always appear here in the middle like it did now, and you have around 20 seconds or so in order to attack it. So that is one of the moments where you can easily use your elemental bursts. As you can see, it went down to about 40% HP. The second thing to keep in mind here is that the attack pattern it's going to do after the initial attack is always different. The one you see right now is the special attack that the Ruin Serpent has. This one can be stunned by attacking all the glowing parts of its body, but it's not really that reliable. Like sometimes you stun it, sometimes you don't. I don't know. But if you manage to stun it, it is basically over, right? After that, the fight is over. So let us now move on to the second half. Obviously, the buffs themselves, they are completely random, so you will have, or not random, but they reset on a daily basis, so you might have others than me. But when it comes to our Eremites here, they are not really new enemies, right? Just take care of their ads, and once their ads go down, they go down fairly quickly. Not to mention that they also lose HP whenever you take down their ads, so fairly easy to deal with, as you can see. Novelette is just broken, in my opinion. One of the best characters in the game right now, or ever probably, I don't know. But there's not a whole lot when it comes to the chamber, as you can see. Once again, it's more about winning time in this chamber so that you have more time for the second half. And this one should be over within a few seconds here. Yeah, okay, there we go. I think sometimes it happens with Novelette that you use your elemental skill and there should be orbs for you to collect, but sometimes they are just not there. I don't know what happens there. But either way, next half is the Wenut. This one can be annoying, and this time it was annoying. This attack that you saw right now, it's completely random. Sometimes it's just appearing like it does just now, but sometimes it's also doing its attack. And there are not really damage windows as you saw earlier with the Ruin Serpent. The only damage window you have here is the one you see right now, but it's not as long as for the Ruin Serpent earlier, or whenever it's going to do its big boy special mechanic, which we will see in a moment, right? This one also, one thing to keep in mind here is that after it disappears, like a few moments ago, right, it always appears at the same location. And here we have the special mechanic. Basically all you need to do there, as you can see, is to shoot the orbs, and if you do so, it gets stunned. Unfortunately, this time around in this one, my elemental burst didn't really line up because I didn't save them in the previous chamber, right? So sucks for me, I guess, but we are still able to do it. I think it was like 5 seconds left or so on the clock, so actually fairly bad, but you know, happens, whatever. Besides that, just try to use the moments that you have where you can attack it, use them as much as you can. If you have to use your elemental burst during it, just do so. It's completely fine. You can see this one right now, for example, is a perfect moment in order to use your elemental burst. And usually also, one tip here, this mechanic where it appears and shoots with its tail, it will always appear opposite to you, right? So if it hides, just be prepared to run to the other side of the room. And there we have the special mechanic again. Once again, shoot the orbs and you're good to go, right? So there's one orb, and I guess the second one I got it earlier somewhere, which also, by the way, you need to shoot 2 orbs in order to stun it. And if you do so, it gets stunned and you can easily take care of it, as you can see. Alright, so moving on, we have Chamber 3, and yeah, I would say Chamber 3 is the easiest one out of all of them, and I have no idea what I'm doing there right now. Just come on, continue, okay? I don't know, I'm just talking over the recording right now, right? So, yeah, Chamber 3, like I said, just like for the previous 2, take care of the first half as quickly as you can, and save that time for the second half if you're having problems with it, obviously. And those guys, if you're using characters that can freeze, like Nouvelette and Lila, for example, that is really good for those enemies, because they are easily freezable, as you can see. They are constantly frozen, so super broken when it comes to them. And yeah, they should go down any second. And I think in the end here I ran out of orbs. Oh no, and never mind. Okay, that went perfectly fine there, to be honest. When it comes to the second half, we have an Aeonblight Drake. You can immediately use all your elemental burst as soon as you start the fight here. But be aware that as soon as it goes into the air, it will always move away from you by doing that machine gun attack. And after that you can shoot the weak spots, like I'm doing right now, and it gets stunned. As simple as that. So you can either use your elemental burst as soon as it appears, or you use your elemental burst now. Right? I kinda used some there, which is a mistake, to be honest, you know, looking at it now, but whatever, man, we were still able to do it in time, so who even cares? Besides that, just try to tag it constantly, right? It's not really that dangerous when it comes to its tags. Even if you get hit, you don't really take that much damage, and eventually, should happen soon, it will go back into the air. And once it does that, oh no, it does a charge attack first. If it does that attack, shoot its head. As simple as that. Then it gets stunned, and you can damage it again. And eventually it will go back into the air and, you know, just attack it and you're good to go. One thing to mention here, which didn't happen in that one, is that sometimes it increases its resistance to certain damage types. And those damage types usually are the ones that you're attacking it with. So if that happens, be aware of that. The resistance will go away as soon as you stun it. And yeah, that's kinda it when it comes to this version of the Abyss. Which brings us to the end of the video. I hope it was helpful. If it was, leave a like, a sub, all of that stuff. As you can see, this time around I took a slightly different approach to the guide, because it was more or less a commentary video over my own run, right, with all its mistakes and whatever else. So a little bit different from what I usually do and from what I guess other content creators usually do. So yeah, I hope it was helpful. And if it was, like I said, leave a like, a sub, whatever, right? I'm also going to either do a GenshinGuide next, or I'm gonna start the exploration series for, you know, for the new zone. I haven't done anything here yet, except for 7 and 8%, which is basically the statues. So yeah, that's both of them. I'm gonna do both of it. So exploration series gonna start soon. GenshinGuide maybe a little bit after that, right? I don't even have him leveled yet. He's still level 1, so that is that. And yeah, other than that, thanks for watching. I now gonna do my dailies, spend my resin, all of that stuff, and I wish you all a great day or great evening wherever you live, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.